I don't know what day it is tomorrow. Sunday the 19th?
Yeah.
Sunday the 19th. 3, 2, 1. Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Sunday, September 19th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Akron game is in 6 days. The game against Michigan in 69 days.
Nice.
Saturday in Ohio Stadium. I'm joined by Kevin Noon. You heard him there. Saturday in Ohio Stadium, the Buckeyes had a 3-touchdown win over a pretty good non-conference opponent in Tulsa. That's the good news. Also, everyone sort of walked away from the game going, that game was just kind of weird and a little unsatisfying. It was a very strange day. You had all the stuff that Ohio State did really well last week. They didn't do well this week. All the stuff they did not well last week, they did tremendously this week. They couldn't run the ball last week. This week, TreVeyon Henderson sets an Ohio State freshman rushing record with 284.
277.
277 yards, 3 touchdowns, 11.5 yards per carry. But Mayan Williams didn't play. And it was just like, what? It was the strangest game. I guess let's start with the good news. TreVeyon Henderson, Ryan Day has talked about you want to have something you can hang your hat on as an offense. It feels like, okay, whatever else is going on, they can hang their hat on TreVeyon Henderson.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he did have a tremendous game. Got one of those rare offensive face mask calls on a run. I was standing getting ready to go set up my sticks for post game, so I didn't get to see it. There are a lot of times we see where that could be called, wasn't called, or it was called here. Just kind of, again, I think it goes to your point of it being an odd game, but it was a fantastic game for TreVeyon Henderson, who very humble, I'm almost shy in the post game. I have a list of things that I want to accomplish. No, I don't want to share it with y'all or whatnot, and there you go. There's my first whatnot of the show. We really got to see what made him a 5-star in most of the recruiting services. Ryan Day raved about him. He doesn't act like a freshman. He comes in, he does his work, and I think really right now, as there's so many other issues that kind of surround the team in terms of performance and execution, somebody who takes care of his business and that you don't have to overly supervise is just a welcome, breath of fresh air.
Yeah. Another thing that was just kind of odd on Saturday was last week CJ Stroud just lit the world on fire with 400 and whatever passing yards. This week, after the game, he said, quote, "It hurts, but life hurts." He was asked about his shoulder. "It hurts, but life hurts." 15 of 25, 185 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Like, it was fine, but it didn't look anything like it did last week. And he starts the game for the 3rd straight week, the game starts with just sailing passes. Everything's high at the start of the game. You look at him and you know what he's been in the past, and it just doesn't look right. No,
and this is the first time I think he actually said it hurts. Before that it's been, well, I played, didn't I? Basically, that's the gist of it. So, he did say that he is dealing with it. It's not, well, I'm healthy enough to play, or however he wants to put it. So, you look at that, but I don't know. I don't understand why he starts out so slow, and really today he just never found it. If it wasn't for a penalty, he would have had a long reception to Chris Olave. That certainly would have added to the stat total. That would have got him to 200 probably based on that. So I don't know. I don't necessarily understand it. We certainly have recorded a lot of material at Buckeye Scoop. A lot of fans are ready to see what's behind door number 2. But one person that's not there is Ryan Day, who still gives a full-throated endorsement of number 7.
Yeah, I do wonder next week. You get Akron coming in. Ohio State, I haven't seen a line yet, but Ohio State's going to be favored by 40 points or something ridiculous like that. If you're going to give CJ Stroud a week off to just kind of let the shoulder sort of heal itself up and just rest it, take a week off, give Kyle McCord some reps, maybe Jack Miller's getting some reps. This seems like this is the week to do it before you head into Big Ten play back on the road at Rutgers, because, there's no ideal situation. And very clearly, Ryan Day has been, he was very, very clear about the fact that he really doesn't think it's fair for people to be criticizing CJ Stroud right now, which, if he's banged up, he's banged up, and that sort of explains why what you've seen in the past from him isn't matching what you're seeing now. But it feels like you've got to think about trying to rest it, because there are bigger games on the horizon in a couple weeks. You get into Big Ten play again, and then like a month from now, you got a trip to Indiana, you got a home game against Penn State, you're getting into the real meat of the schedule where you're going to need your number one quarterback, whoever that is, to be healthy enough to really be 100% and able to play to his abilities. And right now, it just doesn't look like CJ Stroud is there.
No, and you talk about the Akron game, it probably will be a 40-point line. They did win today against Bryant, 35-14, but keep an eye on their quarterback, DJ Irons, throws for 296 yards and 3 touchdowns and has 136 yards on the ground on 15 carries. So let's already start that hand wringing for that game right now while we can.
Ohio State's defense, not fantastic. I suspect they are better than Bryant, although I have not scouted a lot of Bryant this year, so that's on me.
Brian Gumbel. I was looking up famous Bryants, and I was like, there really aren't a lot. I was getting a lot of last names.
Yeah, Bryant is a school out on Long Island in New York. Former Ohio State walk-on quarterback Corey Curtis transferred to Bryant at one point and was a quarterback there. This has been your Bryant football report. So let's talk a little bit about the wide receivers. It was, with a off day for the quarterback, you're going to have an off day for the wide receivers. But Chris Olave had another drop. He just doesn't look like Chris Olave right now.
No, and the turf doesn't look like the turf. And I'm not putting everything on the turf because, it's just, you just can't deal with excuses or whatever. Chris Olave came back. He's, trying to be that number one receiver in the upcoming NFL draft in 2022. He makes the difficult look routine, and then he has one that should be pretty routine, and he completely fights it all the way in and isn't able to make the reception. As I mentioned earlier, he had the one that was called back on a flag. So I don't know. Garrett Wilson looked good today. I mean, we got to see a little bit more action. Julian Fleming was out there. Staying in the tight end room, G. Scott had his first reception as a Buckeye, so feel great for him. But the whole passing game for Ohio State was kind of wonky. I just think that it just wasn't meant to be today. And fortunately, they had TreVeyon Henderson, and not to get back into the running game, but TreVeyon Henderson had a scary moment out there where he thought he might have been a little injured. I don't know where the team would have been at that point, because I'm going to circle all the way back to you saying that this was really kind of a weird game. It was a one-possession game in the fourth quarter. Yeah. Ohio State held its serve. Ohio State scored to go up 2 scores, and then the pick 6 by Cam Martinez, which I'm sure we'll mention in a minute, puts them up 3 scores. Unfortunately for all you degenerate gamblers out there, didn't cover the line. So with that being said, you walk out of there and you look at the score and you're like, they win by 21, but it was a game that they put some space, and then to Tulsa's credit, Tulsa came clawing back, and Ohio State kind of floundered a little bit, and then Ohio State answered finally when it really needed to.
So on the defensive side of the ball, you had some much more encouraging stuff, I think you saw. Last week, the rush, they gave up a big 77-yard touchdown to Oregon. A lot of problems on the ground last week. This week, 2.6 yards per carry for Tulsa. You had a new defensive play caller, Matt Barnes up in the box, calling the plays. Kerry Combs up in the box with Barnes. So, that was new. And I think, the game started with a 16-play drive and a 14-play drive for Tulsa. They were field goal drives. They were touchdown drives. There were 16 plays, 14 plays, and it was like, here you go again. The Ohio State defense can't get off the field. And then after that, the Ohio State defense that had struggled to adjust all season, you maybe saw some adjustments.
Right.
And then there were no more 16-play, no more 14-play, no more 10-play, no more 9-play drives the rest of the game. I think, a lot of 4s and 5s and 6s after that. And, there were a couple touchdowns, but you didn't have the real extended drives after that. I think people are looking for anything to feel good about the Ohio State defense. That seems like something that, hey, maybe they found something here with Matt Barnes.
Right, and we saw them run a little cover 2 early in the game. Unfortunately, when they rolled to cover 2, I think it was a 7 or 8 yard gain for Tulsa at that point, but we saw adjustments, and I think adjustments adjustments without results are one thing. And I understand that. They did not have results in terms of allowing some points, 20 points in this game. Tulsa had 0 passing touchdowns coming into this game, in the game with 2 passing touchdowns. That's their 14 points right there. So problematic at that point. But I think it's a step in the right direction. I think that they've identified some players to get out there. There still was one play that really bothers me, that they rolled 7 or 8 different players in like 3 waves, and it was just constantly Tulsa would roll guys in and Ohio State would roll guys in, and so on and so on. And I'm just like, stop, play your dudes. You're not going to match this stuff up perfectly. But when you sit there and you see Cam Martinez, when you see some of these guys, during a high leverage moment, Tyleik Williams getting his sack. I mean, there were a lot of guys stepping up and making plays where others maybe were not able to. But even though I talk about that sack, they can't get home.
Yeah, the 2 sacks, both from defensive tackles. Nothing for the defensive ends. Again, no Zach Harrison on Saturday. He was out with an injury. So, okay, there's a little bit of an asterisk there, but you feel like they're starting to find some guys now. Like maybe some of the freshmen, Tyleik Williams, JT Tuimoloau was very impressive. Denzel Burke continues to impress. Like it feels like they're starting to find some pieces there now.
And now it's going to be a matter of having a game where you're able to put this together, where you're able to have multiple guys having success all at the same time, because so much of this is built on confidence, and they need to be able to get the confidence out there as a unit that they can do this. I mean, I think this was a good first step. This Tulsa team was not a Division I FCS team. This, okay, they lost to UC Davis. We get it. I mean, it happens. I mean, if it happened here in Columbus, the shoe would burn. But with that being said, I think that it's a matter of being able to string a quarter together, and then 2 quarters together, and then maybe 3 or 4 quarters you get there. Time is limited. Time is limited, because you're not going to have a lot more of these layups. And then some of the layups that you thought you had at the back end of the season are proving maybe not to be such a layup. Michigan State is looking a lot better than the team that we saw last season.
Yeah, Michigan State is looking better than expected. Michigan's looking a lot better than expected. Rutgers is looking better than expected. I mean, Maryland's looking decent. I mean, all of a sudden the Big Ten East is like, there are no more tap-in putts in the Big Ten East. That's a thing of the past. So I guess, should Ohio State fans walk away from this game feeling happy, encouraged, or is this just kind of, well, they won, and that's where the good vibes end?
I think that there should be a little bit of hopeful optimism that the light at the end of the tunnel is not a train, that there is a path forward. I think that there should be a big dose of realism that this is not fixed by any stretch of the imagination at this point. You're just in the foundational stages of where you need to be to get things fixed a little bit. But, and this might not be a popular sentiment, but shouldn't you have been there in August? Shouldn't you have been there in August and not, we're rapidly approaching October, and there's still a lot of stuff that I just don't know how it didn't translate from fall practice. And they're like, this is fine. The little dog sitting there drinking the coffee in the inferno. This is fine. And then obviously it ain't good.
Yeah. You get the sense that they thought they had answers that they maybe don't have now. So they will continue to look for more answers next weekend against Akron. That's a game where you may see a lot more people. We have not seen a second quarterback yet this year. It sure seems like you should see a second quarterback, potentially a third quarterback next week against Akron. If you don't, that's a major flashing red light problem. But that's
choo. That's a train.
That's next week's problem. I don't think that's gonna be a problem. I think you're gonna have next week will probably be a little more relaxed, a little lower blood pressure for Ohio State fans next weekend. But we'll get there next weekend. So that'll do it for tonight from Ohio Stadium. Thank you to Kevin for joining me. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.